Hello students, welcome to week 7 for COM 403. This week we are focusing on media effects and culture, which extends our conversations that we had last week related to media ecology. When you look at the week 7 agenda, you'll see we're reading 3 chapters, which each of those chapters cover a theory. Each of these theories are related to how the media can have an effect on society in some regards to how they're consuming their media. We're completing discussion board number 7, which is due on Friday, with reply posts due on Sunday, as well as the critical assignment presentation, which is due on Friday, with reply posts due on Sunday, and the actual paper for the critical assignment is due on Sunday as well. This will make more sense as we start to explain what to do in each assignment, but we are starting with the presentation for the critical assignment with the assumption that it will help you in writing the paper. Discussion board number 7 covers the area of uses and gratifications theory. Uses and grats is a theory that relates specifically to what people use media for and what gratification they get from it. When you look at that, you'll see that we are also asking you to draw on some ideas of media ecology and Gerbner's cultivation theory, as well as some parasocial interaction that will make sense as you're getting into the heart of your discussion this week. Remember that when you write your discussion post, I am looking for at least one outside text to help you with that, in addition to the course text. The critical assignment, if you remember, we started on this in week 5, is an extension of your own visual map of the field of communication theory. By the end of the course, students should be able to fully map out and understand all traditions and aspects of communication theory and where the theories are housed and organized. You'll notice that the chapters have given us a clear overview of each theory and where they fit in terms of being objective and interpretive, as well as which tradition they fall within. If you go back to the beginning chapters of the course text, you'll see that chapters 2 and 3 help you with identifying what theory is and understanding the major components of a theory as opposed to a concept or something of that nature, while chapter 4 is going to be the vehicle and the roadmap for you developing this critical assignment. You will use the entire text, but chapter 4 gives you a great perspective on mapping the territory of communication theory. It gives a clear overview of the 7 traditions and helps you in terms of understanding that in a more explicit format. What you're going to do in your presentation, which is due on Friday, is create a visual presentation of the field mapped out in the way you see fit. So you're not necessarily adding new traditions or anything like that. Rather, you're taking the traditions and ordering them and presenting them in the order of what you feel is the most important tradition to the least important tradition. And once you do that and you completely describe and explain the traditions, you'll also highlight at least 3 theories from each tradition. This visual presentation will be created as a Prezi, VoiceThread, or with audio or a screencast. The audio portion will help you in terms of writing the paper. Once this is completed, you'll post the visual presentation on Blackboard by Friday and reply to at least 2 other students in the class. Then you'll write your 3 to 4 page paper that justifies your map of the field. So when I'm grading it, I'm going to be looking at the 3 to 4 page paper as your part of your critical assignment. That includes at least 5 outside sources that helps you clearly tell me why each tradition is ordered in the way it was and why you picked each theory, by also explaining the theories as well. You'll include a link to your presentation in the abstract of this APA formatted paper, and in that sense it'll help me in terms of providing feedback and giving you some robust information. What I'm looking for here is that you've decided and you've poignantly showed me that you are beginning to understand how the field of communication looks from a map perspective. You'll clearly walk me through the traditions and how you feel they should be organized by providing me with that perspective, as well as showing me a couple theories to highlight that along the way. Once you finish that, then we'll spend some time next week wrapping up our final points in the course and the last bit of academic work we need to get completed to successfully complete the course. But you should feel great in terms of where you're at with the content and how it relates to the course itself. You'll see as we move into media effects theories, we're looking at a lot of different ideas in terms of how media affects or is influential in society. We're not looking at ecology, media ecology, in the sense that we were last week with McLuhan and looking at and seeing how communication technologies are influential in society themselves. Rather, we're looking to see what humans do in terms of getting effects from media and looking at the effects of media in those regards. You'll see that there is a number of different things that we'll be doing across the line here and looking at these theories and see how they're more transmission based and looking at it from those perspectives. The first theory we're going to look at is cultivation theory. You'll see that cultivation theory is developed by Gardner and Gross in the 1970s. It is an objective theory that falls within two traditions, the socio-psychological and the socio-cultural tradition. So if you were to use this theory in your critical assignment, you would have to decide which tradition you want to put it in based off of the evidence you want to show me to justify that. This theory focuses on heavy media consumers and looking at how susceptible they are to media messages and the belief that they are real and valid. What Gerbner and Gross found is that there's a cultivation of attitudes that are based on attitudes already present within our society. The media cultivates the status quo. Particularly, media consumption is based on the idea that cultivates attitudes within its viewership, and people are more likely to consume media that they associate with than ones that they do not associate with. So when we look at some of these ideas, you'll find that cultivation analysis research is designed to support for the notion that those who spend more time watching TV are more likely to see the real world through the TV's lens. So when you look at this idea, you'll see, when people say, oh, the world is a violent place, is it because they're consuming media and news media that shows the violence that we see in the world? Or is there things that we see because all that the news covers happens to be from a violent perspective or a negative perspective, and we start to believe that that's how the world is, and then maybe we go to that particular area that we've seen heavy violence depicted in the news, and we realize, oh, this area is not as bad as we thought it may be. Well, that's the mean world syndrome within cultivation theory. The more violence you watch through media, the more you believe the world is dangerous, is the idea you're going to believe that that is actually true and accurate. Not that that's not totally true and accurate. You're going to believe that your perception of the world is influenced based off of the media you consume. If you look at that in a number of different ways, you'll see, for example, the book gives a chapter of the Law and Order SVU show where if students watching that found the idea of cultivation perfectly plausible when it comes to watching media violence and developing a real fear of real-world crimes. It's important to see that when we look at the accessibility principle within this theory, that when people make judgments about the worlds around them, they rely on the small bits of information that come to them most quickly. So if I've seen that on TV a lot, then I'm going to believe that a lot more about that particular topic or whatever it may be. Mainstreaming is the blurring, the blending, and the bending process by which heavy TV viewers from disparate groups develop a common outlook through constant exposure to the same images and labels. When we look at that from a resonance perspective, you'll see that the condition in which the viewers of real-life environments is like the world of TV. The viewers are especially susceptible to TV's cultivating power. When we think about this from a differential perspective, we'll see that the difference in the percentage of giving the television answer within a comparable groups of light and heavy TV viewers depends on how often they consume that particular type of media. So it's important to keep that in mind. We're more likely to believe the world is the way that it's presented to us through television or digital media based off of how often we consume that. Extensions to this theory are now being made with social media, digital media, and online content, as well as streaming and things like that. It's not extended to just television shows any longer. But it's important to see how that extension does apply. The more media you consume, the more likely you'll be able to believe the media you see on TV is actually being a reality in society. When we look at uses and gratifications theory, we see that it was developed by Bloomer and Katz. It is also in the objective theory range, and it's in the socio-psychological tradition. What you'll find in uses and gratifications is that we are looking at media users playing an active role in choosing the media they decide to consume. When we give this idea and we think about it from this perspective, we see that people seek information to gratify specific needs. Users take an active role in their communication process, and media usage is goal-oriented. For example, Katz thought studying all those media choices was so important that it could save the entire field of communication. And looking at it, they found that the future of communication research was bleak when it came to the idea of how people use and consume media. And so what happened was they decided to explore this in a little deeper in different perspective. There are four particular ideas that are related, four main ideas, but 8 in general, that are related to the typology of uses and gratifications. So what uses and grats tells us is that people decide to use media for certain gratifications. Media users utilize free will to decide how they will use the media and how it affects them. But there are many reasons why they decide to use media to satisfy their needs. And what we find is the typology of a typical person within uses and grats use media for one of 8 reasons, or more depending on that particular media they're consuming. One is to pass time, meaning we just want to pass time, consider the waiting room at the doctor's office, watching it just to spend time on that, as well as looking at companionship. They're looking at a sports fan gets together to watch the big game with some fans. They're using media, and the gratification from media is that companionship. Escape, instead of focusing on that term paper you have to write, you're using media to escape from reality. Enjoyment, where many people just say they want to watch a TV show because they find the whole experience enjoyable, and that's what they get out of it. That's the gratification. Social interaction, relaxation, to gain information, and for excitement. These typologies are a classification scheme that attempts to sort a large number of specific instances into a more manageable set of categories as to why people use media. Now, when you're looking at it from this perspective, it's important to see how that relates to the field of communication studies. Well, we're looking at the communicative role and the communicative process that media provides in terms of hitting one of those 8 areas. There's also the parasocial relationship that develops from using media. Is to have a friend, they say. A sense of friendship or emotional attachment typically develops between TV viewers and media personalities. So the gratification from media is seeking that parasocial friendship, meaning that parasocial interaction you feel as if you really know that reality TV show host because you watch them on a weekly basis at that given time. Very, very interesting in terms of how that really, really influences society in a number of different ways. When we look at the next theory, we're looking at agenda setting theory. This is a rooted objective theory developed by McCombs and Shaw. It developed out of the 1968 election in North Carolina, but really came to be in the 1970s. It's a socio-psychological theory that looks at how the media, how media can set public agenda and discourse by not telling you what to think, but telling you what to think about. So earlier media effects theories like the magic bullet theory and hypodermic needle theory told us we can literally inject messages into the minds of people. They're ignorant and ignorance is bliss, and we can tell them what to think by sending media messages to them, like injecting a needle into their head. Well, we found that we're a lot more savvy as a group of human beings than that. And in fact, what they found is that the media can set public agenda and discourse, meaning what people are talking about, but not telling you what to think about it. And in fact, they say media professionals, journalists, news professionals, and things of that nature typically like to set public agenda and discourse to get you to talk about what you're watching in the newscasts, but not telling you what to think about it. And in fact, they like to boost ratings by doing that. So we've seen things that come out that are very noteworthy in telling you those things from those perspectives. Now, it's one of the most prominent media effects theories in saying that media and what you consume on TV will set the public agenda of discourse, but not telling you what to think, but telling you what to think about. So this really is now being applied to social media, things going viral online, looking at how those social media outlets, those influencers are not telling you what to think about certain things, but the viral nature of those particular posts are telling us what to talk about and setting the agenda of public discourse. And so when you think about it from those perspectives, that's very, very fundamental. So the main hypothesis related to agenda setting is that the mass media have the ability to transfer the salience of issues on their news agenda to the public agenda. In addition, the media agenda is the pattern of news convergence across major print broadcast medium as measured by the prominence and length of their stories. So looking at public agenda, the most important public issues measured by public opinion, we find that the power of a press in America, the primordial one. It sets the agenda of public discussion, and the sweeping political power is unrestrained by any law. It determines what people will talk and think about, an authority that in other nations is reserved for tyrants, priests, parties, and mandarins. And when you think about it from that perspective, it's very, very influential. There's a lot of studies that relate to the political elections and things of that nature, and how media influence those through this theory. Very, very influential and interesting from that. You find that, and oftentimes the framing comes into a large part in this theory. That is the selection of a restricted number of thematically related attributes for inclusion in media agenda when a particular object or issue is discussed. So it's important to know that when we consume media, there's this idea of setting the agenda by not just what to think about, but how to think about it. It's a definite behavioral effect on the media's agenda. So as we recap and we look through the things we're covering this week, we're reading chapters 28, 29, and 30. We're watching 3 videos related to media effects, as well as completing discussion board number 7, which is due on Friday with reply posts due on Sunday, and critical assignment presentation due on Friday with replies due on Sunday, and the paper due on Sunday as well. Please reach out if you have any questions. I look forward to interacting with you this week. God bless.